So I have 3 kids, and of those 3 kids, I have 3 very different relationships I see with them and how it comes to money. I have one who's a classic spender. When they get cash, it's immediately out the door to get the next thing they're excited about. I have one who's a classic saver. They've got long-term goals, they're thinking about things, and they're saving to build towards what they want. And I have one who turns out is turning into a classic giver. When they get money, they want to give it away. And that's honestly been delightful to watch all 3 of them develop into who they are, but especially with my giver, it's amazing to watch them see the joy in being generous with what little time and resources they have. And I think that creates and reminds us of something, as our kids often do, right? It reminds us of things that we value and who we are. As a culture, as a society, Americans are really generous. We're generous with our time, we're generous with our resources. We are a people who often give and support and do so well. However, we're often a people that do it with a sense of panache and flavor, and we get showiness, and we have our names put on park benches and billboards and parks and schools, and we do it in a way that gets us acclaim and esteem. However, as Pastor Michelle reminded us this last week, the words of Jesus have something to say to the culture in his day and to our culture today when it comes to generosity and how we use our resources. Jesus challenges us that when we give, we should give in a way so that our left hand doesn't know what our right hand is doing, and not in a way that earns us acclaim in the eyes of other people, but in ways that only earns us acclaim in the eyes of God, where we support the things that we care about and deeply care about, but not in a way that gets us honor and praise. And I think that brings a level of challenge for you and I, right? It should prompt a little bit of a challenge for you and I, and ask us, what then do you do? Because I'm willing to bet, if you're watching this video, that you are generous with your time, with your talent, or with your treasure, right? That you are a generous person who does it. And I'm also willing to bet that most of us do not do it with a plan, on paper, and on purpose. Often our giving is responsive. The things we're invested in are based on what tugs on our emotional heartstrings, and then we respond appropriately in a one-time gift, or a one-time support, or action, or engagement. But the words of challenges pull us to more. And Michelle reminded us of those and then challenged us, how is it then that we are to practice the way of Jesus in today's world? And she brought 2 options and challenges that I want to remind us about, because they're both great. On the first hand, she challenged for those of us that give and often do it in a public way to figure out what needs to be public and what could be private. What are things that we could share and give and support that don't need a name or any acclaim attached to it? And are there places where we can move more so our left hand doesn't know our right? And the second thing she challenged us to do is to sit down and think through, what are those things that we support and what are the things that we want to support. Again, to do it on paper and on purpose, and figure out what are the things that are worthy of our time, our talents, and our treasure. To not be responsive, but to be intentional in order to see the kingdom flourish and in order to become the people that God longs for us to be. Because the reality is if we're to become disciples of Jesus, people who are practicing his way, apprenticing with him, being people who do what he did and say what he says, then that affects our resources. That affects our time. It affects what you can do. It affects what you can support. And it should challenge us in good and healthy ways to become better and more full and complete disciples. Friends, as you go throughout this week, I want to challenge you with those 2 things. Where can you be discreet? And where is your giving lining up with your intention? And how can you live into that fully? Grace and peace, friends.